today I'm going to read this story to you to start today. I've got a couple of books in case we need to, but this is called The Big Ugly Monster. And the reason I'm reading this story to you is because I've been looking at lots of ngaru posts on Seesaw, and you guys have been writing about your favourite monsters. Give me a thumbs up if you've done a monster in your ngaru Seesaw post, because some of them are pretty scary. Righty-ho. So this is a story about the big ugly monster and the little stone rabbit. So I hope you enjoy it. Righty-ho. Once in a cave, there lived a big ugly monster, perhaps the ugliest monster in the world. This is the cave. And in this picture, the monster is just about to come out. So be careful, because when I turn the page, wow, here he is. Pretty ugly, hey? Just look at those nostril hairs. Of course, this is only a picture, so you're not getting the whole effect. You're not getting the ugliness at full strength. It's pretty powerful. Pretty ugly, hey? He was so ugly that all the animals and birds ran and flew away as soon as they saw him. He was so ugly that all the flowers dropped their petals and the trees shed their leaves, and even the grass turned brown and withered and died. Poor monster. He was so ugly that if he looked up at the blue sky on a sunny day, it would most likely turn grey and pour with rain or even snow. He was so ugly that if he stepped into a pond for a swim, it would instantly dry up with a hiss of steam. That's how ugly he was. Imagine him trying to have a bath at night. That wouldn't work very well, would it? All around the monster's cave, there was not a single living thing. It was a sad and desolate place. And do you know, the monster was sad and desolate too. For though he was horrible and ugly on the outside, he wasn't on the inside. On the inside, he was lonely. He just wanted someone to talk to. But there was no one. So he talked to the rocks. Some people have friends that are a stone. He began to make stone animals from the rock. He made a fox and a badger and a deer and a bear and a tortoise and a rabbit. They weren't very good. Well, at least the heads weren't very good because the monster had never seen much of real animal heads. The back ends were much better because that's usually the bit he saw as the animals were running away from him. When he had finished, the monster was pleased with all of his stone animals, and he smiled. Uh-oh, what's going to happen? Unfortunately, the monster was so ugly that when he smiled, the stone animals cracked and shattered, and he was left with a pile of rubble. Poor monster! All except one of the animals, that is. The stone rabbit did not crack. Perhaps the stone was stronger. I don't know why it was, but the stone rabbit did not crack. Even when the monster gave it an extra big smile just to test it, the rabbit did not crack. So the monster talked to the stone rabbit, and though the rabbit didn't have much to say, the monster was very happy. The monster sang to the stone rabbit, and when he sang, rocks would shatter and split for miles around. And though the rabbit never joined in, not for one chorus, the monster was still happy. Sometimes on nights when the moon was full, the monster danced. And when he danced, the ground shook like an earthquake, and great cracks split the land, and the moon dashed away and hid behind the cloud. And though the rabbit never joined in, not even to tap its foot, the monster was happy nonetheless. Sometimes the monster did tricks. He stood on one hand and juggled and did cartwheels and somersaults. And when he did tricks, Lightning flashed, thunder crackled, the wind howled like a tornado, and the rain lashed down. And though the rabbit never joined in, unless you count playing statues, the monster was happy nonetheless. Years and years passed by, and the monster talked and sang and danced and did his tricks. But sometimes they both just sat and watched the storms roll by. And though the monster got older and older and uglier, and his hair turned grey and his teeth fell out, the stone rabbit never changed at all. A time came when the monster was so old he could no longer sing or dance or do tricks. He could still play drafts, however, and though the stone rabbit was a very poor player, even when the monster suggested some very clever moves, he was happy nonetheless. But one day, the monster never came out of his cave, and the stone rabbit sat alone. That very day, the sun came out, and green grass began to grow. Soon the flowers bloomed, and vines scrambled over rocks and hung down over the mouth of the cave. Trees grew up straight and tall, and the animals and birds came back. It was a beautiful place now, perhaps the most beautiful place in the whole world. If you look really closely, can you see what's there? You can see that's the ears of the little rabbit. People would go there for picnics and admire the views. Though they never took much notice of the stone rabbit, sometimes they wondered how it got there. Bit tricky, isn't it? Now, I've got two stories to choose from, and I'm not sure which one to go with. I was going to do Possum Magic because you might recognise the illustrator. It's the same illustrator as yesterday and the same author as yesterday, which I quite like too. Or I'm Not Scared. I don't know that I'll do I'm Not Scared because I was thinking about that one for our monsters, but we've read The Big Ugly Monster. We might do Possum Magic. Now, for those people who are a little bit older, I want you to listen for the alliterations in the story. So you'll know that that's when we've got two words with the same sound starting with the same letter. So see if you can hear some of them. So this is called Possum Magic, and it's about Mem Fox and Julie Vivas. The other thing you can listen for in the story is how many animals you hear that come from Australia. There's lots in here, so have a little listen. So this is a story called Possum Magic. Once upon a time, but not very long ago, deep in the Australian bush lived two possums. Their names were Hush and Grandma Poss. Grandma Poss made bush magic. She made wombats blue. She made kookaburras pink. She made dingoes smile and emus shrink. But the best magic of all was the magic that made Hush invisible. Wouldn't that be clever to be invisible? What adventures Hush had. Because she couldn't be seen, she could be squashed by koalas. That's a pretty big koala sitting on her tail. Because she couldn't be seen, she could slide down kangaroos. That would be fun. Because she couldn't be seen, she was safe from snakes, which is why Grandma Poss had made her invisible in the first place. It's a beautiful snake. Look at that lovely face. But one day, quite unexpectedly, Hush said, Grandma, I'd like to know what I look like. Please, could you make me visible again? Of course I can, said Grandma Poss. And she began to look through her magic books. You see, because Grandma can see herself in the pond when she's brushing her teeth, but poor old Hush can't see herself. She looked into this book, she looked into that. There was magic for thin and magic for fat, magic for tall and magic for small, but the magic she was looking for just wasn't there at all. Did you see little Hush? She's just hiding there, just above her. Grandma Poss looked miserable. Don't worry, Grandma said, hush, I don't mind. But in her heart of hearts, she did. All night long, Grandma Poss thought and thought. The next morning, just before breakfast, she shouted, it's something to do with food, not possum food, but I can't remember what. Oh, we'll just have to go and try and find it. So later that day, they left the bush where they'd always been to find out what it was that would make Hush sing. I like the fact that she's got, I don't know if you can see there, but she's got a little map in the front basket to help her where she's going, because we like to have our map when we're learning, don't we? And she's also got a roll of toilet paper, which is very helpful when you go on a trip. They ate, listen for the alliterations, they ate Anzac biscuits in Adelaide, Mornay and Minties in Melbourne, steak and salad in Sydney, and pumpkin scones in Brisbane. Hush remained invisible. Don't lose heart, said Grandma Poss. Let's see what we can find in Darwin. Wonder what kind of Australian food they might find in Darwin. It was there in the far north of Australia that they found a Vegemite sandwich. Grandma Poss crossed her claws and crossed her feet. Hush breathed deeply and began to eat. A tail! A tail! Both possums shouted at once, for there it was, a brand new visible tail. Later on, a beach in Perth, they ate a piece of pavlova. Hush's legs appeared, and then her whole body. You look wonderful, you precious possum, said Grandma Poss. Next stop, Tasmania. And over the sea they went. In Hobart, late one night, in the kitchens of the casino, they saw a lamington on a plate. Hush closed her eyes and nibbled. Grandma Poss held her breath and waited. It's worked, she cried. And she was right. Hush could be seen from head to tail. Grandma Poss hugged Hush and they both danced. Here we go round the lamington plate until early in the morning. From that time onwards, Hush was visible. But once a year on her birthday, she and Grandma Poss ate a Vegemite sandwich, a piece of pavlova, and half a lamington, just to make sure that Hush stayed visible forever. And she did. Fantastic. And look, there's a little echidna just at the finish. Wasn't that a lovely book about Australia? Now tomorrow, I was thinking tomorrow I'm going to read you a story tomorrow about Custard the Dragon. Custard the Dragon's very, very cool. And I thought it might be kind of funny, if you've got time today, you could maybe make yourself a dragon mask or a dragon hat or something. If you don't want to be a dragon, because it's kind of set in a time when there were princes and princesses and knights, so you might want to wear a princess kind of costume, or maybe wear a knight's kind of costume. Anyway, we'll hear about Custard the Dragon tomorrow. All right, so let's see what we can see tomorrow. Lovely to see you all. Great to see you in your bubbles. Take care, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Ka kite, popo. See you later.